Yo, what is up guys, Bobby D7 King here, back again with another video, and in this video we will be doing the top 10 best total drama next generation characters, at least in my opinion, so there's that. Again, this list was pretty hard to put together just because I feel like for total drama, while it's very easy for me to figure out who's the best character, or at least my favorite character, I feel like for next generation it's a pretty even playing field just because a lot of these characters are very well written. But yeah, without further ado, let's just get to the honorable mentions. I've always really liked Bolina as a character. Again, her relationship with Kevin was always interesting, her dynamic with Victor. Obviously, her rivalry with Michelle was a big thing for her character. Again, overall, I just really liked Bolina. I thought she was a pretty likable character, but obviously, there's just one season with her, and I haven't seen the newest season, so again, I can't really put her in the top 10. Moving on to Octavio, who I do really like as a character. Again, he was incredible in Island Homecoming, also really funny in the Comeback Cruise, but I feel like there's a character who is kind of like Octavio, but just slightly funnier, so there's that. I feel like if I were to watch seasons like an Island Homecoming or a Comeback Cruise more recently, Stud Muffin would have made the list, but again, I haven't, and to be honest, he's mostly just fine, so again, I couldn't put him in the top 10. Moving on to Georgia, who I really do like as an antagonist in the first season, also a running back in action. Also, her and Ron's relationship was very interesting to me to watch, and then her and Jay getting together, which did make sense, but obviously I'm a big Ron and Georgia shipper, so there's that. But the main issue of why I didn't put Georgia on the list is just because, again, I don't really have that much of a personal connection to her, so yeah. Moving on to Angela, who I just love as an antagonist. Again, Angela's probably the closest person on the list. She's pretty much number 11 on the list. Again, I love her dynamic with Liliana and Octavio in Island Homecoming. Her run in Island Homecoming in general is just fantastic. Again, obviously there's some rigging in the votes with some Megan elimination, but again, I don't care. Again, Angela's an incredible character. Definitely my favorite type of villain on the show, just a villain that's going to be in your face and upfront with you. Again, Angela's just incredible TV, but I just feel like my number 10 pick is a little bit more well-rounded as a character. And let's get to the list. At number 10 here, we do have a character who is also a main antagonist, and that is Cosmo. Two types of characters that I really do like are the characters that are either villains or just completely comic relief style of characters, and Cosmo is both. Again, in Starless Savannah, he's a very funny character and also a pretty good character as well. Again, we see him build a relationship with China, and then obviously want to see China and Megan become friends, and he's kind of the catalyst to why they are friends. And then in Back in Action, he is very much jealous between the relationship between Danny and Megan to where he gets out Megan, and I just think Cosmo, just in general in Back in Action, plays a very Russell Hand style of game. Again, a game that just feels very much drive based on emotion, and personally, I find that to be very interesting to watch. Also, his relationship with Danny was pretty fun to watch. Again, Cosmo in general throughout Back in Action was just a very fun villain on the season, and also played very well on the season. So there's that. Obviously, I also respect gameplay as well. So yeah, with that being said, Cosmo, pretty great character throughout his 2-season run. But the main issue is that the rest of his seasons are kind of unnoteworthy, so he falls here at number 10. Coming in at number 9, we have the better version of Octavio, and that is Eric, who suffers a very tragic backstory, obviously with his house burning down and him being just very pessimistic. But again, I just find Eric to be a really fun character throughout the entirety of the Comeback Cruise, especially in the pre-merge, to where I don't know when I'll do the pre-merge ranking for Next Generation, but expect that to be high, mainly just because of Eric. I liked his relationship with Ron, which I found to be very funny, and Eric also pointing out that Ron has no belly button, which I audibly laughed when that scene came up. And then also seeing Eric's reaction to where Ron got eliminated in Legends, to where I just felt really bad for Eric there, because again, it feels like Eric really did care about Ron. But overall, I have nothing but positive things to say about Eric. Main reason why he isn't higher is because, again, he only really competed in one season, so it's hard to put him any higher. So yeah, with that being said, he's here at number 9. Coming in at number 8, we have a character who was a very strong character throughout the first 3 seasons, and that is Greg. Obviously, Greg comes off as this just stock jock character, but we see that he's a very nice person. Again, his relationship with Fran I found to be very sweet. Again, him in the bro squad was also a very fun dynamic, and then obviously him and Jackie, which I feel like we'll talk about more when we get to Back in Action, was also a very fun dynamic. Again, seeing a jock style of character being the more level-headed one in the trio was a very fun dynamic on the season, just because, again, Brendan was a very paranoid player just because he was a bad team captain, and then Vince was a very messy character, obviously, just because, again, everyone on the team kind of hated him. We also have Greg with his coconut, and then also his relationship with Megan to be very fun TV. Again, Greg throughout season 1 was just a very fun and well-rounded character. And then we move forward to Back in Action, where he's a very early boot, just because, again, he's team captain, captain, but this time a pretty bad team captain because he's just too focused on competing with Jackie, and then their relationship kind of just gets sour from there. But it does get built back up in Island Homecoming, and just in general, Greg just feels like a better version of himself in Season 1. Again, being a character who is a very good leader, a very good person to people like Octavio, and also defeating Angela was just a very sweet victory in my opinion, and that's why I consider Greg to be the best winner of the show. Just in general, Greg throughout the first 3 seasons was just an incredible character. The main issue with why he isn't higher is just because 1, I just like the other 7 more, and 2, his run in Legends was just not that great in my opinion, so yeah, he falls here at number 8. Coming in at number 7, we have the face of Next Generation, and that is Megan. Obviously has a very tragic backstory and was constantly swearing just because, again, her parents were always swearing at each other, they were always fighting each other. So again, she takes most of her anger out on the other contestants, which I find to be a very interesting reason to be a villain. Again, we see characters like a Danny, a China, try to give her a chance multiple times, but she constantly was just pushing them away, which I found to be a very interesting dichotomy on the season. Again, she also is just a very entertaining villain on the show, obviously always finding advantages despite being a social pariah, which I found to be just a very fun run. Again, I think Starlight Savannah was her best season. And moving on to Back in Action, where her and Danny kiss, and then she actually starts to realize that she does have feelings for Danny, which I did enjoy, obviously, as a big Danny and Megan shipper. And then in Island Homecoming, Danny sacrifices himself for her, and then obviously seeing her change and become a nicer person to people like Greg and other characters as well was just a very fun run for her, honestly. And then we have her run in Legends, where she finally ends up getting her win after 4 seasons, which, again, I think was very much just deserved, in my opinion. Main reason why Megan isn't higher is just because, again, the person that I have sandwiched in between, I just think had a very fun run throughout his entire career. Moving on to number 6, we have a character who, again, I just found to be very entertaining throughout his entire 4-season run, and that is Ron. And straight up, Ron just has a really iconic run in Starlight Savannah. Again, his relationship with Wendell was very interesting. Georgia setting him up also was just a very funny reaction. Again, he's a character that is very easy to rage bait, and it's also very funny to just see him crash out. Again, we get the "Where's My Weed" scene, which was really funny. Again, him also trying to expose Georgia, but it completely backfiring on him was just also really funny. Again, Ron was just an incredible character throughout his first season. We move forward to Back in Action, where once again he is incredible. He doesn't have his drugs on him, but he realizes that Georgia is his newest drug, so I guess there's something in that. Again, I was rooting for him to beat Danny in the tiebreaker challenge, despite Danny being a better character in my opinion. Again, I just really like Ron throughout Back in Action. And then even though he's not in Island Homecoming, we have him yeeting a baby, which in my opinion I think was pretty funny, so there's that. And then we also have the comeback cruise, where he ends up cheating on Georgia with Wendell, which obviously in my opinion is terrible, as you should not cheat, but it does create the iconic Wendell song, so I guess there's that. But personally, again, I love Ron in Legends, to where he finally redeems himself and tries to get Georgia back, and obviously does fail, which obviously sucks. And then we see him get auto-eliminated and just wish Georgia farewell, which I thought was pretty mature from Ron. So again, I think he has pretty good development. It sucks that he ended up cheating on Georgia, and that's kind of why he's a bit lower on the list, but again, he's a pretty good character in my opinion. Moving on to number 5, we have a character who is just incredible. Again, the first winner of the show, and that is Danny. Again, I find Danny to be a pretty relatable character, as I share some of his nerdy interests, so there's that. Again, he's probably my favorite straight man on any show that I've probably ever watched. And again, he's just such a fun character to watch and just analyze. Again, him in Starlight Savannah was his relationship with Casey, with Landon, his interactions with Megan also were very incredible, to where again I was always rooting for Danny and Megan. Also, just the scene where Danny tries to ask Megan out in Island Homecoming was really funny, where he just stands on the table. So yeah, there's that always stuck in my head, and I was hoping that he would win Legends, or at least him or Vince, but obviously he ends up losing Legends, so there's that. Honestly, there's nothing really I could say about Danny. I feel like he's a pretty self-explanatory character of why he would be so high. Again, he's an iconic character, so yeah, he ranks here at number 5. Coming in at number 4, and to be honest, the next 2 characters, I feel like people are going to have giant question marks. Again, I love these 2 characters though, and I will defend them with my life, and we do have Violet, who is just such a wholesome character. Again, a really annoying character, but a really annoyingly funny character. Again, I just find it really funny of how she unintentionally rage baits a lot of people. And again, she's just so clueless to how people actually find her really annoying that it just comes off really endearing to me. I don't know. Again, there's no real instance where I could say Violet was a true great character, but again, she just has so much incredible funny moments on the show.
Editing Bodv here. I forgot to mention Violet's story arc with her dog, and I absolutely loved it.
My favorite dynamics with Violet, though, are probably her and Georgia and then her and Vince. I don't know. I just feel like those two characters bring out the best in Violet. So, yeah, she ranks here at number 4. Coming at number 3, we have Vince's brother, and we do have Victor, who is really, in my opinion, the best Rizzler on the entire cast. Again, every single person found him attractive, and he could have pulled anyone. And I also just loved his relationship between him and the nurse. I found that to be a very fun dynamic on the season, and then him and Michelle create a lot of just great TV moments throughout the entire show. He's someone who again, it's just a lightning rod for unintentional drama that doesn't relate to gameplay, which I find to be a very interesting part of his character. I know a lot of people find him annoying, but personally, I love his character. I love his stick of just being pretty much the ladies' man on the cast, so yeah, he ranks here at number 3. And at number 2, we do have a character that I really personally love based on his gameplay style, and that is Xavier. To be honest, I think if I were to rewatch the entire series, maybe Xavier would fall a bit lower. Again, I really love Xavier as a player, as I think he's fascinating to watch, but again, he doesn't have a lot of great character moments. Again, I like his moment where he says he's sick with 3 C's. That was pretty funny, but outside of that, again, I feel like most of the reasons why I love Xavier is mainly because of his gameplay style. Again, he's someone who's just so strategically savvy that I just find very interesting to watch how he plays the game. Again, his run the comeback cruise was just incredible TV. Really a great display of gameplay in my opinion. Obviously, he ends up getting played by Steven near the end, but I feel like he mostly just loses because of challenges. So again, I just think that Xavier's run was also Violet as well. I think that was a very fun dynamic on season 2 where Violet would always follow what Xavier said, but I feel like that mostly relates to Violet anyways, to where I just struggle figuring out character moments for Xavier, but again, he's an incredible player to watch, and that's why I have him here at number 2. And at number 1, I mean, is anyone going to be surprised? It's Vince. While Danny definitely is my more introverted side, I feel like my more extroverted side is pretty much Vince's character, so I feel like putting Vince lower on the list would just not make sense at all. Again, his relationship with Brendan and Greg were incredible. Again, the bro squad was definitely one of my favorite dynamics on the season. Again, his relationship with Cassandra, the host, was also really funny, where he calls her mama. Again, his dynamic with Casey, where Casey absolutely hates him while he thinks that she has a fat ass, was really funny. Again, obviously Vince is a very gross character, but that's personally why I love his character. Again, he's really funny on Starlight Savannah. Again, he ends up flopping in back in action, and I do feel a little bit bad for him because, again, obviously Greg ends up ignoring him, but I feel like it ends up looking pretty better for Vince in my opinion, so yeah, I love Vince there. Again, his crush on Liliana in episode 1 was great, and then seeing him, I actually thought that Vince was pretty mad at Brendan when asked in the aftermath how he felt about their relationship, but obviously Vince ends up playing it off, which I just found to be very funny. In general, again, Vince could not make it far in any given season, but I would have so much to say about Vince just because, again, he's such a memorable character for me. While my memory of Legends isn't that strong, I feel like most of what I remember about Legends is about Vince. Again, Vince was this massive underdog on the cast, no one really respected him there, but he ends up playing, in my opinion, a pretty solid game and also had a good chance of winning if it weren't for Megan's upgrade in the challenge, so there's that. And again, Vince, just overall in general, was a character that I was rooting so hard for in Legends, and I was very happy that he made it as far as he did on the season. Again, I think seeing Vince's more vulnerable side was obviously his relationship with Victor, as obviously Victor is like the better version of him, pretty much the upgrade, but then proving to himself that he isn't that bad, and he ended up making a lot of people proud, which I honestly think was a very wholesome moment for him. Overall, though, Vince is just an incredible character, full of incredible moments, and that's why he is at number 1. And that is the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And yeah, expect more next generation content coming out pretty soon. And yeah, peace out. Love you guys.